Hey there gang, Kawaii50 here with another Honkai Star Rail video, and now that she's officially gotten a trailer that looks really cool, it is absolutely time for us to go ahead and talk about Sparkle, a character I'm incredibly excited for, despite the fact that I am swimming in supports. But another supporter is always good, right? We're going to be going over all of the best aspects of Sparkle's kit, from her skills, to her light cones, to the equipment you want, to some allies that can really benefit from her support, to either sell you on her or make you feel more firm in your decision. Hopefully, this video ends up helping you out and gets you hyped for this new character. If it does, please like, subscribe, share, comment, etc. All of those things would actually really help me out. So let's kick this off by taking a look at Sparkle's skills. Her basic attack is fairly simple. It is just quantum damage to a single target enemy. You're not really going to be using this much. It is not super important to her entire character, so maybe consider saving some of your materials and don't worry about leveling this up until the very end. Now, what is mostly important on Sparkle are things like her skill, Dream Diver. Dream Diver increases the critical damage of a single ally by 12% of Sparkle's critical damage plus an additional 27%, lasting for one turn. At the same time, this also advances forward the ally's action by 50%. If Sparkle uses this on herself, the action advance will not trigger. You probably won't be using this on Sparkle. This is fairly interesting. I feel like with a lot of people, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to knock Bronya out of their regular rotation, or they are going to be running a Supreme Hyper Carry rotation with Sparkle and Bronya both in the same team. I really don't think there is going to be any sort of middle ground in regards to that. Sparkle's ultimate is incredibly impressive. The hero with 1,000 faces recovers 4 skill points for the team and grants all allies an effect called Cypher. When allies with Cypher trigger the damage boost effect provided by Sparkle's talent, each stack will additionally increase its effect by 6%, lasting 2 turns. What is Sparkle's talent? Red herring. When Sparkle's on the battlefield, your skill point maximum gets increased by 2. This is probably the hugest thing in Sparkle's kit. The ability to increase the maximum amount of skill points has not been done before in Star Rail, and this alone is going to make her incredibly desired by many players, probably yourself included. Whenever an ally consumes a skill point, all allies' damage increases by 3%. This effect lasts for 2 turns and can stack up to 3 times. A growing buff from your damage dealers and your other supporters using their skill points, that seems pretty good if you ask me, considering using skill points is usually what you want to do whenever possible in Star Rail, a few exceptions here or there. And Sparkle's technique is Unreliable Narrator. Using this technique grants all allies a misdirect for 20 seconds. Characters with misdirect will not be detected by enemies, so it allows you to get the jump on them. If you get the jump on your opponents, well, you're going to recover 3 skill points for your team immediately. This is probably going to be really helpful in Simulated Universe when it comes to any sort of stacking. Blow all of your techniques, charge in on that boss, and bing, bang, boom, you are suddenly going to have a ton of skill points to immediately work with. Overall, I think this is super nifty. So I'm not going to go through all of Sparkle's Eidolons, but 1, 2, and 4 all seem very useful. Her first Eidolon, Suspension of Disbelief, increases the amount of turns Cypher is applied to your allies, and all allies affected by Cypher have their attack increased by a whopping 40%. This is an incredibly substantial buff, and really makes me think that people might want to end up going for an Eidolon 1 Sparkle over her Light Cone. We'll get to her Light Cone in a second, you can go ahead and make that call, but this Eidolon 1 is a pretty hefty boost, especially for a supporter. Eidolon 2, Purely Fictitious, of course includes the previous effect, and also makes each talent stack allow allies to ignore 8% of the enemy's defense when dealing damage to enemies. Again, another incredible buff your damage dealers are really going to like to see. When you get to Eidolon 4, Life is a Gamble, you are going to have her ultimate recover 1 more skill point, and then additionally increase the max skill points by another 1. So this is not only going to give us 7, but 8 total skill points with an Eidolon 4 Sparkle. You'll basically never be hungry for skill points ever again. So let's talk light cones. As is the case with most characters, Sparkle's own light cone Earthly Escapade is going to be her best in slot. This will increase Sparkle's crit damage by 32%, which she wants, and this actually is going to make it a little difficult to recommend other Harmony light cones. And at the start of battle, Sparkle will gain Mask, lasting for 3 turns. While she has Mask, the wearer's allies will have their own crit rate increased by 10%, and their crit damage increased by another 28%. For every 1 skill point that Sparkle recovers, including skill points that exceed the limit, that parentheses is fairly important. They will gain 1 stack of Radiant Flame, and when the wearer has 4 stacks, all these stacks are removed, and then they will gain Mask again. So Mask in general seems very, very important to buffing up all of her allies. You're going to stack that Radiant Flame for all of those skill points recovered, and this synergizes so well with Sparkle's kit. It's easy to see why this is the best one. But now the question becomes, well, I don't have Earthly Escapade. I didn't roll for it. What instead should I equip on Sparkle? Well, there is something here that I didn't necessarily mention on Sparkle, and I wanted to wait until we talked about the light cones in order to do so. Sparkle's Ascension 6 grants her this ability called Nocturne. Nocturne increases all of her allies' attack by 15%, but when there are 1, 2, or 3 Quantum allies in your team, your Quantum allies' attack will go up by an additional 5, 15, or 30% on top of that. So Sparkle is really, really effective in a mono Quantum team. Bearing this in mind, a light cone we can easily recommend for Sparkle otherwise, if you're running a Quantum team, is going to be Planetary Rendezvous. Planetary Rendezvous increases the damage of all allies of the same type as the wearer by 12, 15, 18, 21, or 24%. If you're running a mono Quantum team and you don't have Sparkle's best in slot light cone, this might be what you want to run. This might even be what you want to run even if you have Sparkle's light cone, especially if you're running some of the more crazy Quantum damage dealers. Now, if you don't end up having that, there are a couple of other options I could definitely recommend. Another good 5-star light cone for Sparkle would be But the Battle Isn't Over. This is an energy regeneration rate increase, allowing her to use her ultimate more often, and this also regenerates 1 skill point whenever the wearer uses an ultimate on their ally. So you do get a benefit from getting those skill points back, which would synergize well with Sparkle's kit. Beyond that, the only thing I could really recommend otherwise is, why did I almost forget about this? Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds. We can also recommend Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds. I just happened to see this on my Ting Yun, so we'll mention this as well. At the start of battle, whenever the wearer's turn begins, all allies will get a random effect. This can be an attack increase, a critical damage increase, or an energy regeneration rate increase. This is potentially the best 4-star light cone in the game. I'm almost appalled at myself that I didn't end up mentioning it. And this is great because all of your allies gain the benefit from it, and all Sparkle has to do is exist on the battlefield. The nice thing about Sparkle being a support is she will work with absolutely any damage dealing ally. Pretty much anybody can benefit from Sparkle's kit, between the critical rate boost, between the extra skill points. Literally everyone, including other supports, is going to really benefit from this. However, there are certain characters that will benefit from this more than others. And if I had to go ahead and make a guess, make an educated guess, which I'm going to do right now anyways, the best ally you could give Sparkle for damage is going to be Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae. Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae, or Dill for short. If you've been using him, you know he is a very skill point hungry character. And well, since Sparkle is able to increase the maximum amount of skill points that a character is going to have, you're going to be using his super ultra mega ultra charged special attack for his basic attack just basically all the time. This is going to be a massive buff for Dan Heng in general, and people who are able to summon him on this most recent banner are going to be very, very happy. Now, barring Dan Heng, there are of course other characters I can recommend, but I'm going to move towards the freebie options so people don't necessarily have to feel like they need to summon for Dan Heng for Sparkle to be relevant. Let's start with a 5-star freebie option in the form of Dr. Ratio. Dr. Ratio, still can't believe they gave away this man for free. He can definitely benefit from Sparkle's skill point maximum increase, because it'll allow him to use his skill more often, which will lead to more follow-ups. The more times you can use Dr. Ratio's skill, the more times you can use his follow-ups. And if you never ever miss a skill trigger, well, you're never going to miss a follow-up, and not missing follow-ups is the best way to increase his damage. I think I have said follow-ups an efficient number of times. So we can go ahead and move on to the next other freebie character, and that is gonna be Qingxia. I know, you gamble enough with Star Rail's gacha banners, so why would you necessarily gamble again with Qingxia's damage? Well, because when it works, it just works. And just like throwing more Jade at banners increases your chances overall, throwing more skill points at Qingxia increases her chances to deal monstrous amounts of damage. And if you go ahead and tack on that the fact that Sparkle is going to increase the damage of her quantum allies an extra little bit, well, Qingxia is starting to look mighty enticing to use, doesn't she? This is probably the main person I'm gonna end up pairing with Sparkle, and I can't wait to see how crazy that team ends up being. I'm probably just gonna run a Qingxia hyper carry team with Sparkle and maybe potentially Bronya or Tingyun, and that is going to be very silly. So now, let's go ahead and talk about Relics. The crazy thing about Sparkle's Relics is that she is one of those characters where you can stack a ton of crit damage on her, but she doesn't necessarily need to crit. The main reason we are stacking the crit damage on her is so your other allies can crit. So you might not necessarily need to roll for those crazy crit rate increases you need, like I am still currently farming for my Topaz. So what are we going to want to go ahead and give our Sparkle? Well, let's talk about the Planetary Orbment set, because this is going to be probably the easiest thing to grab. You're just going to want to go ahead and get her Broken Keel. This increases the wearer's effect resistance by 10%. When the wearer's effect resistance is at least 30% or higher, all allies' critical damage will go up by an additional 10%. This is going to be great considering you're going to want your ally to crit, not necessarily Sparkle. When it comes to our Link Rope, we're going to go for that coveted energy regen rate as our main stat, so we can keep using that ultimate. And then when it comes to our regular stats, quantum damage is going to be your main go-to. And when it comes to Sparkle's Relic set, I still can't recommend anything better than Messenger Traversing Hackerspace. 2 pieces of this will increase her speed by 6%, and with 4 of these, when Sparkle uses her ultimate on an ally, everyone else's speed will increase by 12% for 1 turn. This was great on Bronya. It's going to remain great on Sparkle considering she's able to advance forward actions as well. This is going to generally be your standard go-to set. Now when it comes to that body roll, you're of course going to want a crit damage piece to affect Sparkle's buff, stack as much crit damage on her as possible. For that main boot stat, we are of course going with speed. There's still nothing really better than speed. Try to hit that 136 breakpoint if at all possible. When it comes to hands and head, well, it's just a substat game at that point. Try to at least get critical damage on every single one of Sparkle's pieces, so you can go ahead and make sure her buff provides the highest bonus for your team. When it comes to effect hit rate, make sure you're at least hitting that 30%, so you can go ahead and activate the effect of Broken Keel. And beyond that, you can just overall invest in things like enough HP to keep her alive. 3k seems to be pretty good when it comes to supporters, especially if you have somebody to keep your team alive with taunts or damage reduction or things like that. So generally try to look for some HP. Break effect can also be really helpful if you're running Sparkle and mono quantum teams, because you're going to want that quantum damage to trigger as much as possible. Overall, gang, Sparkle is crazy good. I was definitely going to end up pulling on this character, and I can't wait for her to come out so I can definitely do so. Expect a summon video when she finally does launch. Overall, Sparkle is an incredible support character. She's the first character we have to break the skill point barrier, so being able to get over that barrier is going to allow your team to deal even more damage in a shorter period of time, which is especially going to be good for things like Memory of Chaos. Now, Sparkle can be run in a regular support team or as a hyper carry team. It's just crazy how many good supports we have in Star Rail right now between Sparkle and Tingyun and Bronya and Ron Mei. We are not worried about getting additional supporters. We should be good for now. Please, we're all good. We're all good right now, Hoyo. Give us maybe someone to take the preservation crown from Fuxuan, or at least be comparable to that. Maybe give us another healer or something like that. Just something different. Just give us something different. Adventurine is looking pretty solid right now. I'm excited for that. We need some additional roles. We're feasting too good on these Harmony characters. There's too many good Harmony characters. We can pump the brakes on that just a little bit. But yeah, Sparkle will work great in absolutely any team, and especially Quantum teams will benefit from her. Mono Quantum must be looking pretty exciting right now, doesn't it? Those of you who summoned on that first limited banner, I'm sure your Scythe-wielding maiden is going to really enjoy having Sparkle on her team. But I want to know what you all think. Let me know your thoughts on Sparkle down in the comment section below. Let me know if you're summoning her. Let me know what team you're putting her on. And if you have any other recommendations for Sparkle, go ahead and put those down there as well. Let's all go ahead and come together and ensure everybody is having the most fun with Star Rail possible by helping each other out. Ask questions, receive answers, and just cultivate a great friendship around this game. As you're heading down to that comment section, be sure to check out the Discord, Patreon, and Ko-fi. Huge thanks to everyone on those platforms for all of their support, and a big thanks to you here on YouTube for watching this video to the end. I really do appreciate it. Anyways, gang, that's it for me, Kawaii50. I hope you all have a phenomenal day, and I will see you all in the next one.